All right. Excellent, guys. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to webinar 8 of the Inspiring Life series. This is Coach Ronnie. Lovely to be here with you all. And today's session is, like I shared, on a very, very beautiful, fun topic that I love, that I truly cherish, like I truly, truly, truly value it. And I don't know if I started to value it the moment I became a new parent, or whether it's after discovering this science. But any new parent here, any new moms, any new dads as well, will know the true value of what we're covering today, which is sleep. And sleep is one of those things which, for many periods, for many generations, there are many quotes. I think when we came to the Industrial Revolution, in the early 1900s, there were a number of people who quoted sleep as it had a very negative connotations, especially in a world where productivity mattered. Team, if you could help me put all on mute and be mindful not to mute me as well. Okay, brilliant. And sleep is one of those things whereby I think in the Victorian era, there were various quotes and sayings as it was researched and looked upon, where sleep was considered this kind of secret asset, this fun thing you did, this thing you didn't interrupt and disturb, and people did it, enjoyed it as much as they did. There was nothing against it or stigma against it. You go to somebody's house or certain times of the day, and if they weren't out and about productive or uh, owned by others and had to do certain other functions in society, them sleeping as and when they wanted to, or sleeping in, or sleeping long or late hours, was not frowned upon, was not looked down upon. Then came the Industrial Revolution, and actually, there's a guy called Thomas Edison who we always attribute to the quote around, he didn't fail 10,000 times, he just found 10,000 ways how not to make the light bulb. And while we attribute him to his drive and success, he was somebody who actually frowned upon sleep and said that it was like a disease and illness and something not recommended. In fact, one of the things that he invented really has worked against us and interrupted our natural sleep, which is the light bulb. And it completely has impacted our health and well-being in the area of sleep. And sleep is one of the key pillars of the FITBANKER program. So valuable. And we're going to remind you why it is one of the 5 pillars as we get into today's. So that said, and having said already that it is about sleep, this quote by Sean Stevenson, who's somebody we quote, who I think is really puts a lot of relevance in his world of health information, health transformation, health coaching, on sleep being a lot more important than nutrition and exercise combined, which is really powerful. And it's true, and the science will also explain that. And many of us have never understood this because we haven't understood the importance of key hormones, and we've spoke about some of the hormones last week that are relevant for things like appetite, for things like metabolism, for things like mood. And all those that are relevant for appetite, metabolism, and mood that we think need to be in a certain state for optimal digestion or absorption of nutrition, or for us to be in peak performance when we exercise, are predominantly generated and optimized in the level when we sleep. And we'll look at what happens when we don't have those optimized. So that's really why sleep is being attributed to as being more important than the two combined. So that said, we are now, what are we? 10 weeks into the program, and I would love to hear from any one of you. It'll be awesome to get somebody that has not shared before, but if you don't see somebody that has not shared before raising their virtual hand, then you go ahead and share. You go ahead and lead the way. I'd love to hear from someone. Read this out powerfully. If you're somebody that's like hiding out at the back of the classroom, now's your moment to raise your virtual hand. Please read this out and please share what has shown up for you. So who would like to go? Let's go. Please do raise your virtual hand.
Jacqueline's hand is up.
All right. Oh, it is. There we are. Why did it not show up on my screen? Oh, something in the order has changed. Jacqueline,
Hiya.
Jacqueline, over to you.
Hi. Can you see me? It's a little dark. It's fine, yeah?
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, cool. So FITBANKER, the life transforming series. Welcome to life. Objective. At the end of this challenge, I will be someone who, one, has altered my own relationship to food, exercise, and myself. Ooh. Two, understands the real role of my body, mind, and intellect. Three, continually transforms my environment, community, and habits to discover and live my unlimited potential. Well, four, leverages social media and in person sharing to show up as a health leader and a go to person in my community. Social media is now filled with positive, healthy, and inspiring content. The world and the lives around me are now inspired and choose to start living life. Everything is transformable.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So powerfully read out and created for everyone here. So share with us, Jacqueline, what's been happening with you? What of these objectives are you beginning to fulfill upon?
Yeah, so I mean, all of them, to be completely honest.
Oh,
Like for one, my relationship to food, exercise, and myself. I was sharing with some friends today. There's like I'd always want to make a difference to people or help people, or whatever, and I would just be empty and depleted. Whereas now, like putting myself first is like just transformed how I am operating in my life. Like, I was on the phone and I would usually maybe just sit down and be on the phone, but I was like, no, I've got to get my steps in. So I'm not going to do video call. We're just going to have to be on the phone. Which has given me such confidence and power, which I didn't expect, that working on my health and my body and having that groundedness has just been amazing. And then, like with two, about my mind, body, and intellect, it's all leveling out now. It's like that whole thing about mind, spirit, and yeah, body, mind, and spirit, like that kind of thing. So it's all equal. It's not like one's better than the other. It's all coming together. And then, yeah, like just sharing with people. So many people now are like, oh, I'm starting to do working out every day, or my boyfriend's a little bit overweight and he's now working out twice a day with me, or like showing me pictures that they've, started eating. And I'm going away on a holiday this weekend. And one of my friends she started another program and she's gone, oh, actually, um, we're going to cheat a little bit, but not that much. And she's really reassured that I'm actually not going to, just binge on this holiday and we're going to do some healthy things. So yeah, it's been really surprising actually, if I'm completely honest. So yeah, and then people are going to
right.
me about that and asking like, what has shifted? Where is this confidence or power come from? And now it is definitely a go-to person I'm just experiencing. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Really powerful. Jacqueline, so awesome to hear and see. I just saw your guys' update video. I don't know when your video was shot as well, but definitely also seeing that physical and just hearing your energy shift in how you speak about this, which is so awesome. So when you say you love helping people, remind me, what do you do? What do you do for,
For work.
uh, yeah, what do you do for a living?
Yeah, so I'm an actress and I work in the theater. So
Good.
I guess maybe that's like the role a little bit, like quite empathetic, or I don't know, that kind of stuff. And I've done a bit of coaching in the past through like different programs. Um so there's, eldest of six kids, so there's probably just something there about helping other people as my go-to.
Awesome.
But it's so weird on a psychological level. It was like being a bit of a people pleaser. Whereas
Yeah.
now, having my body being my first priority, it's actually from a place of contribution.
It's amazing what you just distinguished there, because something we say as well, and why I'm asking you and want to hear whether you've done coaching and whether you have applied or not to be a coach with FitBanker, is something that would be naturally suited to you inside of what you're saying. But one distinction is, rather than helping, which is not what we're doing, the people that need help are somewhat, in our view, helpless, right? Where that's kind of the way the language works when we are out to help somebody, that they're in need of help. But really, where we are is coming from a place of inspiring, empowering, and committed to making impact. And that's really what a coach is. So it's just hearing you share, I think that's just what came to my mind, and I didn't want to step over that. I just wanted to share that with you, which I think you'd be kick-ass in, whether you're a coach with us or in your own world. So awesome to hear that, but really awesome to hear and just experience. I'm sure everyone else in your team experiences that in what you're sharing has begun to shift in and around you. So really, really, really powerful. All right. Excellent, guys. That said, a very quick recap of what we looked at in webinar 8 is part of optimizing ourselves is externally in the world, we want to create that routine, which we've looked at from the beginning of the program, but also internally, stuff works and our internal machine and engine and gears churn when we can create internal routine. And we interrupt that routine when we push ourselves out of balance and out of homeostasis. And so we looked at certain things that really contribute, that were common denominators across the multiple hormones we looked at that contribute to good, happy, healthy state of hormones. Some of which were lifting heavy weights, getting good sleep, which is what we're going to look at today, a bit more in the depth of that science, relevance, benefits, and impact of it. And also creating no-tech times and no-tech zones. That was part of our assignment to really look at what would happen if and when we do that. Ironically, this week we're also timed right in with this webinar. We're also at that point in our book club. For anyone that's not part of our book clubs and knows of our book clubs, we run book clubs back to back. So we're currently reading Think Like a Monk, and we're right now in the chapter called Routine, which is chapter 6 on routine, which is really, really, really powerful. And it also brings in and incorporates some of what we have here. There were a couple talks, and I want to share and acknowledge there were people, somebody that mentioned in this week passing, talking about PCOS. I highly recommend, if you didn't watch it, please be sure to watch the first talk on how food affects hormones, and it will have you really understand why, if we have any sense of what you might call stubborn fat or easily put on weight gain or fat gain, how that and we think that that's a correlation. There may be correlation between hormones specifically, or people that have PCOS and weight gain. That particular talk really does touch on that. So I just want to stress that if you didn't do that, if you didn't watch these, everything we're giving you as a recommended listening is about reinforcing to the mind, presenting certain pieces of information, hitting at it in a timely point in the program, such that it really corroborates and consolidates what you hear on a webinar. It's just like how we build a bicep. When we build a bicep, we can do bicep curls, and we would also hammer the same bicep from different points and heads to really give it distinct shape and form. And we do that as well with how we learn, our learning muscle. So everything here is not an add-on. It's not presenting per se something new and different. It really consolidates and allows your mind to understand. Inside of webinar 1, we looked at how adults learn. We need to understand the science, we need to understand the why, and we do like to look for evidence-based stuff. So whenever we present something, it goes hand in hand with the webinar. And even if you didn't watch it, it doesn't matter if you feel like you're fully juiced in what was on the webinar, but we do recommend these talks that we share with you. Then there's the connection between stress and disease, and a talk by Dr. Gabor Mate. If you haven't heard this guy, he's an absolute genius, and he's especially somebody that is a genius in the world of trauma. And trauma isn't as dramatic as we might picture. A video or scene of trauma that we might see on TV or some drama that we watch. Trauma could simply be some moment of light bullying or being taunted or joked at or laughed at with kids in a playground or by our parents. That could have been processed by the brain as a traumatic experience and could be the underlying cause of what exists today in the form of what we think is, or don't realize, is stress, and even what impacts the quality and depth of our sleep. And we're going to look at that as well today. We looked at sharing day 60 progress pics, so big kudos to everybody that shared. I want to stress this point here, guys, that there is obviously some of you are sharing an update on your chat. We do recommend you share it on the main challenge group so that I can see them, because I'm not on every coach's chat. So please, if you haven't shared, if you shared your day 60 progress on your chat, but not in the main group, please do. And I want to state this again, if it's not obvious, there has been a recent culture of, hey, for day 45, I'm doing this, for day 60, I'm doing this, and you're posting some other image of your demonstration of how much has shifted for you, or a video. That's all welcome and great. But I would say you do that in addition to a very simple day one and day X. So day one and day 45, day one and day 60, and there could be either two front view ones or two side view ones. It doesn't have to be both. But something that can give us a visual assessment of how much you have shifted. If you just give us a point in time single standing picture, we can't really tell. And we really want you to guys, some of these things they're completely not requirements, but they are recommended. And we do invite our coaches to say, coaches, it is testament to how amazing you are as a coach that you let your teammates know why that visual progress measure and sharing is important. And so it is an acknowledgement as well to coaches for those of you that have had your participants all share. But it isn't a requirement of the program, but it is very, very highly recommended for you to be okay and at ease and in love with you as you are, but also for us to really acknowledge how much you've shifted or not. But even those that don't cause a shift, what used to happen to me is if I see my day 1 to day 10, there's no shift, or day 10 to day 30, there's no shift, it works as a psychological kick in the butt to say, heck, there's no way 15 days later I am posting an image that shows the same or worse, especially if I'm taking action. So it's always prevalent for me. It's a psychological driver that avoids and keeps my self-sabotage mechanism at bay. And if there's nothing like that at stake, like a declaration amongst this trusted family, then there is room for me to allow my self-sabotage mechanism to kick in. So every part of this program, every request of this program is for you. As you know, we're not interested in those photos or doing anything with those photos. If we don't have your consent to share it, we're not going to do anything with them, you know? So they're shared for you to understand and experience drive. There's real science behind what we're asking and every aspect of what we're inviting everyone to take on. Okay, what are we looking at today? Understand the importance of sleep. Why do we sleep? And then how can we optimize sleep? So I want to share a little bit about that, but it's just to reiterate, most programs think of us as at the physical activity and nutrition level, or most programs out there are just at the physical activity and nutrition level. But you don't have a holistic experience of yourself and life if you don't really understand the interconnectedness, the interrelatedness, and the interdependency of every pillar of your life, which is your movement and physical activity, your nutrition, your mind-body connection, what's called psychosomatic process that happens between our mind and body, our sleep, and our relationships. And there are a few things: relationships, time, money are all factors that impact our emotional state, right? Including time. And it impacts our well-being. So these are things that trigger off triggers, right? That set off explosives and cause this emotional volatility in our drive and performance. And there is a big correlation as well between sleep and relationships as well. There's a big correlation between the efficiency of not just mind body, but the actual brain and neuronal function and signaling capacity of our body when sleep is compromised. So today our focus is on sleep amongst many others. So let's start off by why we sleep. If you actually think about sleep, it often also almost doesn't make sense. If we are functional creatures, if we are productive creatures, if we wanted to be productive and busy, we may and could and would choose to just be in action, to be just doers. But why then do we sleep? Which sleep has actually been at the source of, when you go to sleep, you incapacitate your limbs, you paralyze yourself, you literally go into a state of unconsciousness, unawareness, and anything around you could happen. In fact, historically, hunter-gatherers have perished while in sleep. We've been hunted, we've been predated, we've been attacked by other humans as well in our sleep. So there is also a lot of risk per se from a survival mechanism around going to sleep. Historically, there has been as hunter-gatherers. But why do we sleep? The reality is it's one of the most researched areas of our well-being in modern day. It's one of the areas which is getting a lot of attention and research and exploration. And that said, it is getting that much because a lot of people realized we don't actually know. Because a big part of our recent history, from in the last 200 to 300 years, has been about not sleeping, about being awake, being alert, and acknowledging people from freedom fighters to warriors to kings who invaded territories to productive people in industrial eras to so-called millionaires and billionaires who were perceived to have not slept much and worked, to prime ministers like Margaret Thatcher, who ridiculed things like sleep, uh, and and so it was something frowned upon, not interested in, not backed, not funded for. And now there is a lot of research into, hang on, we are becoming a society that is becoming sleep poor, sleep deprived, and it is having an impact on so many things. Something Jeff Bezos' quite renowned quote is, of course, if we sleep less and we're awake more, we will produce more product, he says. But the quality of that product will decline. And he talks about how sleep is so key for efficiency and productivity and the effectiveness of what we do. Now, hormonally, why we sleep, the reality is that the one answer is that nobody actually really knows why we sleep. But when we sleep, one of the biggest things that are observed, that we've monitored and looked at, is the brain. And it is believed that sleep is something that we have to do and is essential and demanded by the brain. And when the brain doesn't get it, it demands what's called mini sleep cycles during the day, which is when we doze off, when we need an afternoon nap, when we fall asleep at the wheel, which is the brain saying, there is no way you're going to stop me from getting this thing that I want. And so it is predominantly considered to be for brain health and specifically brain elasticity. And the brain is what's responsible for so much things, from recovery and repair of the body and mind, and performance of body and mind. And so when we sleep, one of the main things that happens is a hormone is released, one of the main predominant and key hormones, which is melatonin. And melatonin is released specifically in the dark. And as hunter gatherers, and before Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, we naturally went to sleep, other than being exposed to fire and the flame. We went to sleep in the sort of the dark hours of our natural day. And those dark hours dictated our healthy body cycle, or what's called our circadian rhythm. And that circadian rhythm, over the generations since we got into that in the Industrial Revolution, and today, as we've even gone deeper into use of tech and exposure to white light and blue light, is been significantly altered from what naturally suits human performance and human functionality. And FitBanker is really existing to empower human performance. Your coach is an accountability coach looking at you, getting closer and closer and driving you towards your unlimited potential in pursuit of your why, whatever your why may be for each of you. That's what an accountability coach is. How do they cause performance? To have you do a program by the program's design, because the program is designed to boost your performance in life. And so one of the big reasons that we sleep is for this brain elasticity. It is what regulates our appetite, our metabolism, our mood, our alertness. It is noted, research has shown that a third of our lives are spent asleep. More specifically, 36% of our lives are spent asleep. If the average age nowadays, the life expectancy in most developed nations with good healthcare and certain lifestyles is expected to be around about 90. And for those that will live up to 90, or those of you that know somebody that's lived up to 90, about 32 years of those are expected to happen and have been asleep. So first of all, it's really key to understand how relevant it is for repair, for recharge, and for a lot of us to experience our optimal selves and therefore our peak performance. Anything and everything that has been researched, any living organism, whether it's a fish, whether it's a piece of bacteria, whether it's a germ, even plants, any living organism ever studied sleeps. And just as we know, plants in the daylight have a certain functionality and the nighttime have a different one. In the daytime, they take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen, and at nighttime, they take in oxygen like human beings and they give out carbon dioxide. That's even true for plants. And what's been seen with all organisms that live or have continued to exist over these generations is if we didn't have jobs like we have created for ourselves, and we think we're smarter than other human beings, we've created other purposes of why we exist. But generally, the reality of why we exist and the things we've seen to be doing over all these millennia is to simply reproduce uh, and survive. We procreate and we survive through that process. We reproduce, we eat, and we sleep. And so that's kind of what we do as we go through our survival mechanism. We eat and sleep and we procreate. And that's how we get one generation to the next. And a big part of that is sleep and its benefits. There are multiple benefits of sleep and what happens when we sleep. So firstly, and most relevant now, is sleep has been seen to boost immunity. In fact, any of you can try this out. Is if you, well, research of 100 plus people was done, and in that pool, what they did was they had two groups of people. One group sleeping between 7 to 9 hours, and another group of people sleeping between 5 and 6 hours only. On average, the group that slept 5.5 hours on the fourth day of that 5.5 hours of sleep, compromised sleep, all experienced some form of compromised immunity. Mainly what was noticed was a runny nose, right? So their immunity is given up. And I experienced that firsthand. And I invite any of you that want to experiment, if you haven't, when you've gone through a busy period, it's often just about our work week. And our work weeks often are, in this industrial world, last 5 days. If we push and grind for 5 days, we reach that point, our immune system being compromised, and then we somehow need that weekend to catch up and prevent us just falling unwell. And when that carries on for a bit too long, sometimes by 4 long days of poor sleep, the fifth day we're likely to have our first signs of compromised immunity. Often it is a runny nose or mucus in our body, or inflamed states in our body, which is the first response to something not being right. What happens when we sleep is, when we don't sleep, we don't get adequate sleep, we create a spike in our fight or flight hormones, which create a demand in carb or sugar intake, which is one of the biggest contributors to weight gain. So I'm going to say that specifically again. When we sleep, we release melatonin. And melatonin is required there for healthy levels of ghrelin. And when we don't have adequate melatonin, ghrelin is the hormone that says, I'm hungry. When we do not have healthy levels of melatonin, we have compromised melatonin, a seesaw hormone is increased ghrelin. And that increased ghrelin is what communicates to our cells an increased desire for carb intake, for glucose storage. The glucose storage is what creates craving and contributes to weight gain. Sleep contributes to our heart health, our heart functionality, and our resting heart rate. When we get good sleep, you will find that over a period of time, with other factors, which is the nutrition and the diet, you'll find that nutrition and your exercise, you'll find that your resting heart rate, with good sleep as well, starts to be in the mornings a lower resting heart rate. If you have great nutrition and regular exercise, they both will contribute to better elasticity performance of heart or cardiac heart health. But if the sleep is compromised, you will find a heightened resting heart rate. So heart health has been one of the biggest things that benefit from getting adequate and quality sleep. Of course, elevates mood. When we get melatonin spiking in the night and good melatonin production, what happens when we sleep, when we wake, is that melatonin drops and it allows this other hormone called serotonin, which is, if melatonin is what's called or serotonin is like a neurotransmitter, it's basically sending these signals across the brain to say that, hey, I'm happy, I'm enjoying, I'm up for some exercise, is actually serotonin. It is the hormone of happiness, right? And serotonin only is heightened or increased when in the night we've gotten good melatonin. I spoke earlier about Jeff Bezos' quote around increasing productivity. There's a beautiful quote by Bruce Lee, which is, I am not worried about the man that knows 10,000 kicks. I'm worried about the person that practices one kick 10,000 times. And that is when you show up in the ring as somebody that has practiced that enough, you get to show up in the ring and be your peak self. But that ring on a daily basis is when you show up at work every day and you've gotten good sleep, you have practiced or elevated all the hormones relevant to boost productivity, specifically focus, and that don't create tiredness, fatigue, and a host of things that happen with absent-mindedness and memory, that compromise memory, which is the last point there, which completely impacts productivity. In fact, specific on the last 3 points, productivity, performance, and memory, what was noted that the brain does, that in the waking hours we have experiences and neurons fire. Like we many of us distinguish, our brain makes interpretation and meaning. So the moment we've learned something new and then we discover it experientially, it becomes learned at one level in the mind. When we do that again, we enhance that experience and that meaning, or we strengthen that meaning, like we looked at in the first slide around how our brain makes these interpretations. But what was noted was that when we sleep, those neuronal pathways are only strengthened in the presence of brain elasticity and increased melatonin in our sleep. So it contributes to our memory, it contributes to what's called mastery when we get quality sleep. Any new meaning or interpretation or experience that the brain has made gets reinforced in our sleep. And that could be used to boost a confidence cycle, or that could be used to go into what's called a negative spiral. A negative spiral is you made some negative meaning, and more of those experiences when you sleep, you may even have dreams that reinforce that horror, that nightmare, that concern, that inferiority belief of yourself, and it spirals down that particular direction. So we can really use the brain and sleep to reinforce the beliefs that serve us. In webinar one, we looked at limiting beliefs. A lot of those views and beliefs we have were formed from an experience. Neurons fire. We have a similar experience again. Those same neurons or neuronal pathway fires, and those neuronal pathways keep firing and strengthening in our sleep. A lot of us dream about those things that we fear. A lot of us have repetitive dreams about the areas of our insecurity or where we think we're not good enough. We actually have recurring dreams over a period of our life, which is basically those same neuronal pathways running on repeat. And we can hack that. We can rewire that by understanding what's going on internally at a scientific level in our brain. The magic hormone that we're speaking about is melatonin, which is the hormone that we want good quality of and good quantity of. Now that naturally spikes and peaks in our as we're kids, in our early school years, in our primary school, and in our high school and teen years. That slowly starts to dip and decline, but it's still at a healthy level for that age and stage of life. And melatonin is directly correlated with things like our memory, with things like our brain and muscle and body repair. And as we get to our 50s, 60s, and 70s, we tend to get naturally a very low level of melatonin. As a result of those low levels of melatonin, you find that the depth of the sleep, which is, we're going to talk about the stages of sleep. There's a stage called REM, rapid eye movement of sleep. We don't get into that long enough as we age. And so you might find elderly people in your house are light sleepers, or you find as we age, they can do with less sleep. So instead of 7 to 9 hours, they might be doing 5 or 6 or 7 hours of sleep, depending on their age and stage of life. But that could also be, that's directly correlated with a low level of melatonin in their body. Now, melatonin, while it is a sleep hormone, but why it's considered and why sleep is considered more relevant than diet and exercise combined is that when melatonin is high at night, it spikes up growth and development of other hormones like human growth hormone. Human growth hormone peaks in our sleep between 10 p.m. and round about midnight. Melatonin peaks often between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So we want to get quality sleep and aim to be in sleep between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And remember, our body is, again, based on the time we wake up. When we wake up and we open the curtains or we go outdoors for our work hours, the moment we're exposed to that light, we have a spike in serotonin and a suppression of melatonin at that point in the day because we don't need that melatonin surge in our body. But that triggers the start of our body clock, or what's called our circadian rhythm. And so as the sun sets, as the evening comes in, as the light disappears and it gets darker, our bodies are now preparing the body clock for a spike in melatonin, and that peak melatonin really boosts the hormones that are needed for strength, for muscle tissue repair, for brain elasticity and function. And so there are multiple hormones that only get serviced and fueled and do their role when we've triggered the right melatonin release by about 10 p.m. So this is why we highly recommend people who are getting in bed between 8:30, 9 p.m., 9:30, which for a big period has been early for me. But even this week, I've managed to get in bed around 9:30 and 10 twice. And it does contribute to better productivity, better energy levels, and better mood the following day. And that mood point I'm going to talk about is how poor sleep impacts mood, impacts communication, conversations, and relationships. So that's the connection as well between our sleep and also our relationships, which is what we're going to look at here. What happens when sleep is compromised? So we've spoken about brain function and memory, right? Memory is reinforced in our sleep, and the neurons fire and strengthen their elasticity, or those pathways firing, in our sleep and in the presence of melatonin. If that's impacted, of course, for kids, a big part of that is kids with compromised sleep significantly impacts their learning. One thing that was highly noted and often is seen, that a lot of impulsive people who are impulsive, have have a lot of compromised years of compromised sleep, and so low sleep and low melatonin apparently triggers impulsiveness. So if you're somebody that thinks you're quite impulsive, something that minimizes us being impulsive is, one is sleep, the other one is meditation. And so also preparing us for good melatonin release as we wind down for bed is having a good meditation practice even before bedtime, and ensuring that we're not exposing ourselves after that and before sleep to white light or blue light. So big correlation with mood and our willpower or avoiding impulsiveness. I spoke earlier about how it lowers immunity. The moment we don't have that adequate repair happening night on night, and we looked in the hormone system, how excess strain and overdrive of certain systems compromises certain others. And one of the first few that give in are immune system, the reproductive system, and the digestive system. So talking of the digestive system, we showed how overdrive of certain hormones running longer on our adrenal glands or our fight or flight systems means digestion packs up. So metabolism slows down. One of the big reasons we either put on a lot of weight during periods of stress and long hours of being awake and working but low sleep is we either put on a lot of weight or we reduce a lot of weight. We put on a lot of weight because increase in ghrelin, and we're either consuming a lot, or we're not allowing adequate repair, and therefore we are leaning up our muscle, we are leaning up as well our body, and the mood, impact to mood, might even impact our appetite or our feeling of wanting to eat or not eat, and has been seen to either cause spike in weight or significant loss in weight. But basically, your digestion is no longer efficient and doing it at an adequate rate. It significantly impacts fertility. I think statistically, research has found that women getting less than 7 hours of sleep are 15% less likely to get pregnant than women who got 7 to 8 hours. I do recommend any women who are trying to conceive, even if you're going through an IVF process or you're looking to conceive through IVF, one of the things when we stress about not conceiving is that ongoing stress puts us into a spiral of repetitive stress, which impacts things like the quality and depth of our sleep. We sometimes turn to other things like watching TV, Netflix, binge watching, or some other form of escaping what we might be currently worried about or stressing about. We may turn to food, we may turn to TV, we may turn to gossip, we may turn to other forms of worry that take us away from quality sleep, which further reduces our chances of conceiving. So we go into this negative spiral that makes it work against us, and it can also trigger certain things like early onset of menopause, but maybe not. It might just also show up as skipped menstrual cycles, right? So when you also have that, you want to look at, have you been compromising on the quality of your sleep? Well, it's not just for women, it's also for men. Men that slept for less than 6 hours a night are 31% less likely to probably get someone pregnant than those who got between 7 and 8 hours. So men mostly produce testosterone, which is the key hormone we need for our drive, for our muscle build, and for reproduction, especially while we sleep. And we have low quality sperm, semen, testosterone as a result of not getting adequate sleep. It does increase depression, as shared earlier. In fact, it is a big cause of, or there's a strong correlation with low levels of sleep and depression as well as anxiety. And longer term, there's been research to demonstrate that a lot of elderly people that do have dementia, that do have Alzheimer's, when they looked at the history of their work life and hours they worked and the stresses that they took on, there's a high correlation with low sleep, high stress environments, high stress jobs, or high stress careers, or prolonged hours of their life or years of their life working that had a higher correlation of dementia and Alzheimer's. We spoke earlier about heart health and the loss of sleep. And I can't remember the exact research, but there's a certain number of nights where sleep is compromised, where we have now a heightened chance of getting a stroke. And many of you may know people who had a stroke or a heart attack, often followed a short period of stress, a buildup of literally, it doesn't take more than a week. It's somewhere between a week and 2 weeks of prolonged stress or going through prolonged stressful period that subsequently led to a stroke or heart attack. One of the big impacts is to mood, and the mood really, what it shows up in your 24 hours is you're a lot more snappy, you're a lot less tolerant, you're a lot less compassionate, you're a lot less empathetic. And that's exactly how it directly impacts the quality of conversations and relationships. And one of the common denominators there has been low quality or shortened hours of sleep. Reduces life expectancy. I think it's they saw people that slept on average between 5 to 6 hours a night reduced their life expectancy by about 15 years. So a lot of people that have had ended up having a shortened life also had a strong correlation with fewer hours of sleep. And then there's a view that we are less attractive. It does give many of us bags under our eyes. It does impact various things like patch and spotting as well across our face. And it does create early onset of, if you do consider that less attractive, increased wrinkles or aging of our skin. So that's something as well that has been found to correlate with low quantity and quality of sleep. Okay, so let's have a look at the stages of sleep. There are 4 stages of sleep. There are generally 3, and some may call it 3 to 4 stages of what's called non-rapid eye movement. So a lot of them may refer to them as NREM stage 1, 2, 3, or NREM stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. What's happening through these stages, we go through a cycle, and from the moment you get into bed up to when you are dreaming is about 90 minutes, right? As most of you know, if you've gone to sleep and 30 minutes in, very unlikely, if not at all, that we will go into having any dreams. Completely not at all. Whatever you remember, if you were interrupted after 30 minutes, is you being awake and you're still in a very much wakeful and probably memory or thought stage. NREM stage 1 is you're transitioning between wakefulness and sleep. That could be between 5 and 10 minutes or 15 minutes. If you're like me, it's definitely between 5 and 10 minutes before I'm kind of knocked out, for lack of a better word. As we go to NREM stage 2, first thing that happens is our body temperature changes. So if you are under sleep observation, and anyone that saw the film, which we did recommend earlier, which is Game Changers, there was one thing there where they looked at nutrition and sleep, but they also showed you a lot of the research done by sleep scientists where they observe you under dark light and they're watching your various stages. And there are various ECG patches attached to people in their sleep, and they monitor various things from body temperature dropping, heart rate begins to slow down, the brain begins to produce what's called sleep spindles. This is a certain voltage and electricity that starts to generate, and they can monitor what are called low frequency and high frequency phases of the the rate and pace at which the brain is functioning. And that lasts about 20 minutes. So 30 minutes into it, we're now going to enter into what's called stage 3. Stage 3, now your muscles begin to relax. And between stage 3 and stage 4, what actually happens is that they get so relaxed that we go into our muscles being immobile. Our blood pressure and breathing rate drop, and our deepest sleep occurs at this point. Now, we're calling this the deepest sleep between stage 3 and stage 4. What then happens is we go into what's called REM. This is the interesting, funny, or almost spooky stage of our sleep, which this could last anything from about 15 to 20 minutes. We're in REM state of that 90-minute cycle. And in those 15 to 20 minutes of REM sleep, this is now where the brain starts to become a lot more active. This is where our eyes, as the name suggests, REM, are beginning to oscillate up and down quite a lot. And we can see that through scanners that are looking at our eye movement, and they're literally beginning to move quite a lot. They're moving so much such that we think we are in wakeful state, and this is where we have dream. This is, if you were to look at the spiritual explanation and definition of sleep, there is a view, there has been in many spiritual schools of thought, that in this state we actually travel to other worlds. And that's so much what happens in our dream state. But REM, what happens is our muscles become completely immobile. We're not talking about the spiritual aspect or philosophical aspects, but they're literally views that our soul, our spirit is able to travel from the physical body. And this is why the physical body is immobilized. Or at least that was the belief before a lot of scientific research was done a few hundred years ago in many schools of thought in Eastern philosophy. But this is where dreams occur. And this is where a lot of philosophers actually question which one is the dream, which one is the reality. That state where we're doing and experiencing what we are, or is it the one where we think we're awake now? But what happens here, other than everything going up, even our heart rate goes up in our REM state. We're a lot more active. The brain is most active, but the dreams are most vivid, right? Yet the body is physically immobilized. And this is the stage in which somebody wakes you up, shakes you up, or if the alarm rings when you are in REM state, we will often wake up with some form of a headache. We will wake up with a complete like brain fog. We will wake up with a lot of annoyance and nuisance. And just waking up in the REM window is often what leads us to feeling, I had a horrid night of sleep. You might have had a great night of sleep, but in your last sleep cycle, you woke up at the wrong stage. It will give you or leave you with the experience of the whole night was messed up. A lot of new mums will relate to that statement. Here's just another view of these stages. We go from being awake to NREM 1, 2, and 3, 3 and 4, and then from there we go into the REM state, which is, like I say, 15 to 20 minutes. So each cycle from stage 1 to REM is about 90 minutes, and from there we're back into stage 1 or stage 2. Again, we get down to stage 4, and then we slowly enter into REM. And that continues. And through any night, we will go through anything between 1 to 6, but on average 4 to 6 cycles of going into REM. So we will have memory of going into dream state 4 or 5 or 6 times. But often, most of our dreams, if we didn't wake up in the middle of the night with them, are often closer to the morning. So most of the memory and dreams that we have are the dreams closer to our waking state, or the last few cycles of REM. So that's it. How much sleep do we need? So you will see this with babies. Babies' bodies and functionality is completely driven by nature. As a newborn, 0 to 3 months, they will need between 14 to 17 hours, which is 60% of the day. 60 to 70% of the day, they need to sleep. Way over half the day, if not 2/3 of the day. As an infant, from 4 to 11 months, we're talking about more than half the day. Sorry, this is closer to 60 or 70%. As a toddler, 1 to 2 years, which is where Soham is, our little baby, he needs to sleep about 11 to 14 hours. He still has interrupted sleep in the middle of the night as he's feeding, and he needs to make up at least 11, up to 11 hours, if not close to 14 hours at this stage of his sleep. Preschool, which is where our firstborn is somewhere between 10 to 13 hours. And when we as parents compromise on him getting that amount of sleep through the day, it will impact him on various things like learning, like memory, even confidence. Because, like I explained, when we form a certain belief or experience about ourselves, the neurons fire in a particular pathway. We get to reinforce that view and belief of ourselves by allowing our kids to have quality sleep. And in many Eastern philosophies, Eastern sciences, there is a view that a lot of our belief system is formed in the first 5 to 7 years. So it's key to understand and really look at, and maybe some of you will look at what was the quality of your sleep. Some of you can even ask your parents what was the quality of your sleep in the first 5 to 7 years. School age 6 to 13 years, we need between 9 to 11 hours. Team, if you can help me mute whoever's unmuted. And as a teen, we need between 8 to 10 hours. Now, as a teen, this is where we start to interrupt it. We think play and party and going out and watching TV and the discoveries of our freedom, of like, you don't tell me what to do, is where we start to shake up and interrupt the quality and quantity of our sleep. As a young adult between 18 to 25, we need 7 to 9. Again, this is what is interrupted by the lifestyle, the partying, the new careers and jobs we get into. And from 26 to 64, which most of us are in that window right now, we have maybe a couple over 65, is where we need between 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Now, this is really what a lot of the science and research of late has shown, and there are many generations before us that completely would have diminished this science, which was not conducted at the time, right? And it was all about in times of war and politics and conquering nations and being the largest, fastest growing company. Many senior leaders or CEOs would take pride in sleeping 3 to 5 hours, and that would have significantly impacted, in the later years, various lifestyle diseases would have kicked in from either heart health or even carcinogenic diseases that had kicked in. Okay, that said, there is a view, and this one has been there for a while. This has been there from about the 80s or 90s. This is a guy who, I think this was quite popularized when he came on Oprah Winfrey Show. Dr. Brace was called the sleep doctor in the 80s and 90s. He created this category of we are different based on the type of sleeper that we are. Now, why am I sharing this to you? What I'm sharing with you before I click through and explain the types of sleepers, there is no one better than the other. So if you don't end up being the one that you want to be, it's not the end of the world. You maybe can alter the type of sleeper that you are. And the purpose of knowing this is, say this science is true, is how do you use the sleep cycle and sleep timing that works for you to match the design of your day, your productivity, and maybe even your career. A big part of what our program is where we incorporate aspects of Ayurveda. Is Ayurveda's one of the view of well-being. It's not just about body and mind, but body, mind, and they specifically reference environment. And it's why we state that here, people understanding their environment, and I'm going to talk a bit about that today and what's called SAD lamps, can even tell us that the region we work in or the career we work in may completely not match the type of sleeper or person or personality that we are. So let's have a look at these four. So dolphins, the kind of people, the type of sleeper that are considered dolphins, like dolphins, they are light sleepers. In fact, dolphins, if you actually know about the research, they believe only half of the brain sleeps at a time, and the other half is fully active. And that's to be awake, to look out for and be mindful of any predators. So dolphins generally as human beings, deal with insomnia. It's so funny, I'm speaking to somebody who saw my post on this supplement called GABA, and she says, you need to help me with my sleep. This has been an issue for me. I've always stressed. She's in the law practice, she's in the law field, and she says she gets up in the middle of the night thinking about this case and that case and what will happen, and she needs to know the next 3, 5, 7, or 10 years of how her life is going to unfold and what she's dealing with. And she's such a go-getter in life, a very high achiever in life, and has dealt with and accepted she's just never going to get to sleep. And she's so worried about how that future will be that sometimes may have compromised living in the moment. Tend to wake up or recommends waking up for peak productivity, 6:30 a.m. Uh, Ideal to kick off your day with a workout if you're a dolphin before your meal, before any food intake, having breakfast an hour after waking and after your workout. Creative work is best done or dealt with between 10 a.m. and noon. And in the afternoons, good to have a little bit of a pulse raiser with a short walk before working on anything that requires our productive attention or difficult decisions to be made. Recommended no tech an hour before bedtime, and bedtime that's often suited for dolphins is around about 11 or 11:30 p.m. Only needs about 6 hours of sleep each day. Now, as we say this is a view from the 80s or 90s, and a lot of the earlier slides have a lot more research on how there's been an impact on our body over this period. Lions are often up at the crack of dawn. If Mr. Bakama is on, Andrew Bakama, he's somebody who I think is a lion. Most energetic in the mornings. Wake and plan their day between 5:30 and 7 a.m. That guy wakes up at like 4:30, in the gym by 5 or 5:30, and he would be there till about 6:30. Burnout early evening, so they are knocked out 8:30, 9 p.m. If he's on today, he's doing well and making an exception to be on, which is brilliant. But both him and his wife, and having known his late dad who passed away, amazing guys who are very, very productive, have an amazing work ethic, and their productivity is known in the town, and the company that they run. They run a body shop, panel beating shop, but very productive company and industrialists. Workout, great time to work out for lions, although Andrew does in the morning, is around about 5 p.m. No tech recommended 30 minutes before bedtime, and bedtime around about 10:30 p.m. latest. Lions often need only about 7 hours of sleep each day. I have a very different day if I sleep just 7 hours versus if I sleep 7.5 or 8 hours. To me, there is a big difference. If I sleep 6 hours, 6.5, it really does mess up my day. It really does me feel many moments in the day like I just need another power nap, and it does impact me if I compromise the quality of my sleep. In fact, what happened specifically to me is I don't know how I pulled it off in my professional career days, but there were days I'd be there till 11 p.m., midnight, working on a screen, sometimes 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and one day till the following day, lunchtime. So I went for a full 30-hour work day, 30 hours of work. And probably I did that twice in my career. And what would happen, somehow I pulled that off on Red Bull and everything else that I consumed. There was a big ghrelin release, and I was consuming loads of carbs through the night to keep up and keep going. But now, when I do that, and I'm not obviously taking carb intake, I get significant lower back pain and feels like my kidneys are aching. And I don't know who else as well experiences that, but that's something that is like so obvious to me that if there is a party happening or it's New Year's Day, I really can't be asked to stay up till midnight to do the countdown events for New Year's, except when we're on the mountain, which is what we did last New Year's, and which is what we're going to do this New Year's. And in fact, what we did was we slept at 6:30 or 7 p.m. and wake at 11 p.m. and get ready for the countdown and our ascent up the mountain. Those are the only twice in past couple of years that we've done that. Most entrepreneur CEOs are lions, energy in the day and burnout at night. Bears, this is where I think I'm somewhere between a bear and maybe a wolf. Bears need full 8 hours sleep. For me, it's a game changer when I get my 8 hours. I wake around 7 a.m. That's a good time for me to naturally wake up even without an alarm, but not happened last few weeks. This week, as we're actually observing our routine for the book club. Great to begin with the workout. I actually have great days where I really feel powerful, where my morning has started with the workout. I do have power naps in the day, or naps welcome in the afternoon. I don't have that as much now, but I used to often have a lot of power naps. I do have them now whenever I've slept 6 hours or 6.5 hours and it's impacting my productivity in the day. I do have a power nap in the day. Most difficult work is recommended for bears between 10 a.m. and noon. However, for me, I find I get most productive somewhere around about 4 p.m. So if I am a bear, I'm slightly off what this recommends. I'm most productive between 4 p.m. and maybe 5:30, 6 p.m. And bedtime around 11 p.m. 11 p.m. is like my natural, on average, sleep time. That's across the year, I would naturally, on most days, sleep at 11 p.m. Other than while we're in Zambia and over this lockdown period, being out here and working UK hours, that's the one thing that's getting slightly more dragged and happens 11:30 p.m. So by today, me being able to stream this live to YouTube, I might have found a breakthrough to get in bed earlier after these webinars. And wolves, what do wolves do? Not particularly morning people, as wolves are. Wolves tend to go hunting and prowling in the night. I think in my teens and early 20s, I was definitely a wolf. Wolves wake up better around 7 to 7:30 a.m. Eat breakfast right when they wake up. A lot of us feel this. We wake up and we're like really hungry. You might be a wolf. Post breakfast, follow with a workout or go for a walk or want to do some of your planning and your chores around the house. Most productive in the evenings. This is where I felt I was between a bear and a wolf, because I actually feel most productive in the evenings. And in my single days, I was definitely hunter-gatherer in the evenings. Dinner late, after 8 p.m., 9 p.m., even 10 p.m. What helps wolves for better sleep and better bedtime is a hot shower before bedtime. If you're on the FitBanker challenge, which wasn't around there in the 80s when the sleep doctor created this, you know it'll be a different kind of shower. I actually think cold showers are better. We get better sleep, better quality of sleep, and bedtime around midnight. So if I were to peg myself, I would be somewhere between a bear and a wolf. I would love to be a lion, and I guess we can create it because we are no fixed way other than in our limiting beliefs. So it'd be good for you guys to know where you are. Let us know what you think you are in the chat or on the WhatsApp group after today's session. How then do we optimize our rest and sleep? How do we allow this body to repair, to replenish, to recharge? Well, firstly, create a sleep schedule. This is one of the most powerful yet most abused thing that many of us do not have in the area of health and well-being. Very few people have a regular go-to-bed time, right? I mean, if it's late, it's regularly late. That they may be regular in that sense, but they don't create, and it's often in a reaction to how the day has gone, which is the moment they get free, they go and knock out after they've done everything they need to do or worry about. But creating an effective sleep schedule. Most people, what they tend to do is if they go to sleep late and they're living on that thing called, oh, I need 8 hours sleep, they impact the following day by sleeping in extra, which isn't ideal. What we want to do is, it's a real goal to have, this is my sleep time, and it won't be messed about. It won't be missed. So create that. What creates quality sleep as well and allows us to get naturally fatigued at the end of the day is to have a powerful, heavy exercise much earlier on in the day. Avoiding caffeine. We have what I call this minimum, what are they called? Minimum sleep cycles, where our body is seeking out that little bit of the brain going into sleep. The brain does go to sleep in intermittent moments across the day. And what we do is we've turned over this period to stimulants. So I'm somebody who has turned to caffeine, and avoiding caffeine or minimizing caffeine, at least depending on your sensitivity, from midday or early afternoon, allows you to allow your body to naturally fatigue itself and get into sleep. In my case, and given the business we've chosen to do, like my evening on webinar days is performance time. So I want to be peak energy. I don't want to show up here and be snoozing on you guys. Ideally, to get quality sleep at night is we want to avoid sleeping or afternoon naps. Now, culturally, this has been there for like the Spanish and India, where we have afternoon siestas. That has been there, and it matched those eras and generations of trade. In the Middle East, it's normal to go out at 9, 10, 11 p.m. at night, and everything is open till about 2 a.m. And there are late morning starts. And a lot of that eastern part of the world has gotten in sync with GMT or the Western world to service those markets from financial or tech perspective, or outsourced businesses that work in those areas. And as a result, it has also impacted the natural sleep cycles in those areas. Avoiding alcohol. Alcohol is something where we think we might knock out really quick, but we tend to be light sleepers with alcohol. I used to find on a really, really big drunken night, I could spring out of bed 5 hours later and feel really energetic, only to find about 4 or 5 hours later of being awake, I crash again. And that was, for me, completely a function of alcohol. Meal and beverage timings contribute to good sleep. It's recommended, ideally, that you're having your last meal and not consuming any solids after that last meal and bedtime with about a 3 hour window in between. So that's what works best. But if not, we recommend at least an hour and a half on the FitBanker challenge. Try to have your last meal an hour and a half before your bedtime. Medication, and a lot of medication that is stimulants tends to interfere or impact with natural melatonin. So we want to be responsible and mindful of that. There are supplements that we do recommend which will contribute to better melatonin, better sleep, and specifically having good REM, right? And then we should get up, or when we feel restless or when we're awake, try to get up in that moment rather than entering into another sleep cycle, which what most of us do, which is what happened to me today. I got up at 6, light was up, my curtains are open, natural light comes in, I'm awake, the body feels awake, and for whatever reason, I'm like, you know what, let me just chill out a bit and snooze a bit. And then I went into a whole another cycle, and I only properly got out after 8 a.m. So explore that. These are some of the questions to have. Bathing, see how that supports you. Create your bedroom as a sanctuary. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Sunlight exposure early in the morning, plus with fresh air and outdoors, creates healthy serotonin. And when we can create that healthy serotonin earlier in the day, we allow it to deplete and kick off melatonin production later in the evening, early in the evening, which allows us to get into good sleep by 10 p.m. I spoke about supplements, which I'll talk about in a second. So how do we improve our sleep environment? Here's an extract from one of the social media accounts that we followed. Is creating that designer sleep sanctuary. So light. Try using blackout blinds. That's one of the first things that we should do. They really, really contribute to quality sleep. When we sleep, I'm going to share with you guys a talk by Sean Stevenson, who we quoted right at the start. There is a view, research suggests, that even on our skin, so exposed skin in our sleep, those of us that like sleeping bare or with our legs or arms out of the bed sheet, and there is even light coming through the little inlet or window above your door or from the curtains or a neighboring street light, all that light pollution acts like on our skin we have little light sensors and receptors, and they don't allow us to get into REM. So they keep us always in some NREM state, which is a light state of sleep. Room temperature, which is colder than I often sleep. I often probably have that room temperature when I'm in hotels because they have very thick duvet-like blankets, but you can chill down the room, is between 16 to 18 degrees. Most of us are still sleeping somewhere between 21 and 23 degrees Celsius, which the ideal room temperature is somewhere between 60 and 67 Fahrenheit. No tech charging next to you. This is something I did for a period of my life really, really well in 2017, 2018, by having my phone outside when I first, discovered Jay and Think Like a Monk. And here's some of my conversations with him around sleep time, working hours, and so on, and keeping our mobile phone, no tech times and no tech zone. So trying not to take your technology into your room, or if you do, at least let it not be by your bedside. Let it be at a wall away from your bed that you have to get up to if the alarm rings for you to switch off. Avoid technology in the last hour before bedtime, and ideally avoid technology other than if you're using it for, say, meditation or some waking music in the morning, in the first hour or hour and a half when you wake. Double glazed windows for reduced sound, so a lot more quieter room means a lot more better quality sleep. And switching to a traditional alarm clock. So when we have our phone, which has the snooze option, it might serve us better if we put our technology aside and switch to a traditional clock that we can keep in our room. This really opened up a lot for me when I discovered seasonal affective disorder. I don't know if anyone here has heard of it or anyone deals with it, has been diagnosed with it, but seasonal affective disorder, there are lamps called SAD lamps. And just as the name suggests, SAD lamps, seasonal affective disorder, makes us quite sad and unhappy in certain seasons. Mostly when we go into autumn or winter in most regions, especially in the northern hemisphere, is where it's most common. Is certain regions where we have reduced hours of daylight in the northern hemisphere, especially. There is a significant correlation with low mood, with anxiety, and with depression around those seasons. And so, what's recommended are sad lamps. And what sad lamps do is they try to mimic the normal, ideal, natural waking hours for you, where in the morning, that lamp on the side begins to light up with the time you want to wake up. And with the light receptors on your skin or through your eyelids, you get a sense of, oh, the room is lighting up. It's time for me, for my body to slowly come out of my sleep cycle and get ready to wake up. So it helps people wake up with less brain fog, in a better mood, and probably getting out of bed quicker than going back into another sleep cycle. Something we do recommend a lot more for immunity, but also for relaxation of muscle and muscle recovery, especially people on the FitBanker challenge. You're working out your body. You might have engaged and entered into a new level of training and fitness. But as your body gets used to it, you want to be better performing in each of those workouts, each of those walks, each of those runs, each of those CrossFit sessions. So, what are we trying to do is that when you sleep, you want to optimize, like recover as quick as you can over that sleep time. Talking about famous people who joked about you don't need that much sleep, somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger would talk about how he would train and how he would work. And after working all this time, he would still get 2 hours of training here, an hour training in the morning, and this is what his typical day looked like. And he says you only need 6 hours of sleep, right? He explained how much free time you have when you park aside your 8 hours a day. And yes, you're going to tell me, some of you, that you need 8 hours of sleep. Well, in that case, sleep faster, as he would joke. But that sleep faster, even though he would joke about that, is you want to recover faster. And the way we expedite recovery in fewer hours of sleep is by having supplements like ZMA, and a new one that I've started, I've gotten onto, and I highly recommend, and I've recommended it to a few people in the last 2 challenges, and they're coming back to me saying, like, it's been amazing. It's been a game changer for them around sleep. And GABA, which stands for gamma aminobutyric acid, is something that really contributes to better quality sleep. In fact, when I have it just 5 to 10 minutes before sleep, and I really enjoy my sleep. I specifically try not to miss it. Where I've had an intense workout and I'm feeling swollen and sore before bedtime, I'll have my ZMA and I will have my GABA. When it comes to ZMA, many of us are having multiple supplements in the day, some of which, like, I don't know if anyone followed me on Insta recently, my Insta story, I shared the USN hardcore GH protein that I'm on. It comes with added ZMA. It comes with added one of the testosterone boosters called Tribulus, all natural stuff, which boosts our immune system, which boosts our muscle recovery. So I would just state that if you are having any such proteins that already have zinc and magnesium and vitamin B6 added to it, then you may not need the full dose of ZMA at bedtime. So just be mindful of that. Any excess of which doesn't mean there's more relaxation or quicker recovery. It just means more of it will go to waste. That said, that's a wrap. Exactly an hour 15 in. So this week's assignment is take on optimizing sleep activities between now and end of the challenge, and really look at how this will expedite the same walking you're doing and the same exercise you're doing. But if you add quality sleep, which if you previously didn't have, you might see leapfrogging in results. So create a bedtime routine, share that on campus. Like, what time will you go to bed? What are you going to do in your last hour or hour and a half before bedtime? Whether it's meditation, whether it's turning off your technology, whether it's switching off notifications, whatever works for you. Create something so that you are not still a reaction to your habits. You want to design habits that design a new you. Ensure that you continue to track your sleep. Those of you with Fitbit, you can monitor that. You can monitor the quality of your sleep. If you've already been monitoring it, watch what happens when you set an earlier bedtime than what you normally sleep at, if your normal sleep time was not early already. Begin to implement and optimize sleep, and look at creating that cocoon environment, your sleep room. So I've done this, which not so much to my enjoyment, but the quality of my sleep was being impacted when while we're out here, me, Ambika, and the kids are sleeping in one room. And we've put a couple mattresses on the floor because initially one of the kids was rolling off and falling off the edge of the bed. So we just put mattresses on the floor. But as a result, my morning is being impacted, or the kids waking or crying or something in the middle of the night was impacting my sleep. And they may have just needed mom. Sometimes they do need me, but my sleep is getting interrupted, and so slightly selfishly, I've moved to another room, and the quality of my sleep has completely shot up, and my mood and productivity has altered. I mean, the power in my workouts has significantly shifted. So moms, don't make your hubbies wrong if they are trying to optimize their sleep. Acknowledge them. And so there are a couple of talks I want you to listen to. One is a TED talk. I'd actually recommend you listen to the TED talk first. This is a slightly older one called "Why Do We Sleep?" Might have influenced a very popular book called "Why We Sleep" by I think it's Tim Walker, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the talk that I'm referring to by Sean Stevenson, where he says sleep can be a lot more important than exercise and nutrition combined. So again, I do recommend you listen to that. We have day 75 coming up. Can somebody remind me when day 75 is? It is October 8th.
Right.
So as a reminder, guys, yeah, as a reminder, we don't have a webinar next week. We have 2 weeks off before webinar 9. So please try to implement this and be in communication around what you're discovering about sleep, and even track your body composition. If you create the good sleep routine where there's a gap between mealtime and bedtime, you get the full hour's sleep, you're hydrating well in the day, you're allowing your body to naturally fatigue. You can take the supplement GABA if you wish. I do recommend GABA. Um, See how your body composition is a lot more responsive the following morning or after a number of days of sticking to a good sleep routine. And day 75, October 8th, we are looking forward to your updates. And we do invite you, as you do share that, do invite people into the next challenge, which is starting in January. As a reminder, guys, we've had the highest uptake, and it's not uncommon. January is always the busiest period, but it is probably the first time in 6 years we've had so many people sign up to the January challenge 4 months earlier. We have about 20 something from this program, and we also have people from the September program just 2 weeks into their challenge have already anchored into January. So I just want to let you know there's over 30 something people already in January. It may be one of the first challenges that we have to close off on quantity much early before day one. Those of you that want to have a powerful start to 2022, well, there are still not the mega early bird packs, but the early bird packs for you guys to join, which again, we reduced the price for the July challenge from $259 to $239. So those of you that are still thinking about just locking in that future and not having to worry about it, then go ahead and sign up. But more importantly, we do want you to invite people in your world, sharing what you've discovered on the FitBanker challenge with them and inviting them to join. It is Matt Walker who's written the book called Why We Sleep, and he's a Stanford research scientist, and it's a great talk as well. He's got some great TED Talks that he's done and other talks on sleep. Sleep is not an optional lifestyle luxury. It's not something for the lazy that was considered, or the slackers that was considered in, the early 20th century, early 19th century, even as far back as 25 years ago, as recent as 25 years ago. It's a non-negotiable biological necessity. So if you want to be that peak person for those loved ones around you, especially from a mood perspective, prioritize that sleep. On that note, guys, end of webinar. Time for me to stop this live. And